Hey guys, my name is Robert. A few days ago, I released Kiki, an Alfred workflow for ChatGPT and OpenRouter AI models. If you have followed this channel for a while, you may know that last year I introduced ToolVox, an AI shortcut. It's a very powerful shortcut still, but I always found it to be slow on my Mac. So I challenged myself to create a faster and more efficient text-only tool. While Kiki has fewer features than ToolVox, it provides a better overall experience, especially on desktop. If you are someone who deals with text regularly and want to use AI for presets or common repeating tasks as an everyday tool, then this might be just for you. I have just released a short video showcasing Kiki's features. You can check it out by following the link in the description, but here I just want to walk you through some of the setup, show you how to create your own presets, and explain a few things that will be helpful, just so that you don't find using this tool so intimidating. Please note that you will need the paid Alfred Power Pack for this. And trust me, it's totally worth it. You will also need an API token from either OpenAI or OpenRouter. So grab a cup of coffee and let me jump to my computer. Okay guys, here we are on the GitHub page of Kiki. And I will be referring to this documentation maybe a couple of times throughout this video. If you have any question, it is very likely that it will be addressed somewhere in here, because I try to go very much in detail about all the different features and functionality. But for now, my purpose is just to get you up and running with this. We already talked about OpenAI and OpenRouter requirement of having the API tokens. You also need to have JQ, which is one utility. And to make sure that you have JQ, you can open terminal and type wish JQ. If it gives you something like this, it means you have it installed. If not, you probably need to install it through Homebrew with this command. Homebrew is kind of like an application or package manager, which is super useful to install utilities or other applications. For installing this, you only need to copy this and paste it in terminal. You can do research about this. It's nothing malicious or anything like that. It's actually extremely useful, and I highly recommend it. After you get JQ installed, let's jump into Alfred for the setup of Kiki. Okay, here we are in Alfred, and you do not need to insert both OpenAI and OpenRouter. But if you have both and you want to make the most out of the models that you have available, you probably want to have both of them. Just make sure that the models that you are using, are part of the API that you are using. For the default model, I'm using the 3.5 Turbo. This is the fastest that I have tested this with so far. Most of the things here are self-explanatory. For an alternative model, I usually have one for coding, but you can have a different persona, or even you can have the same default model and use a different system role. This is important. I want you to have total control on where your conversations will be saved. So you can just set this up in a place that you'll be backing up with Dropbox or something like that. It's just important that it's a folder that is only for use with Kiki, nothing else. So just make sure that you just choose one folder, that you don't have any other files in there. We want to create the presets folder, the context, history, items. This option is also very useful. The way that Kiki keeps track of your conversations is with context files. And by defining a place for your context files to be quickly saved, you can very easily back up whatever conversation you're having or whatever conversation you just finished. And as we will see in a little bit later, we can restart our conversations from these files that will be copied to your directory. Now everything else, the clipboard delay, I have it set up to 0.3 because my computer can handle it, but I believe that default is 0.5. Markdown chat pattern ID. If you have Bear, I suggest that you use this, because the way that Bear deals with the organization of your notes is through this hash symbol. This is not for every application. That's why I didn't set it up as a default. But if you have Bear, which I think is a beautiful Markdown capable application, I suggest that you use the hash. We will look at this a little bit later, but setting up this symbol here is what allows us to have conversations like this. Because Kiki can identify the header of our note. For the rest of the settings on Kiki, I think the default should be good enough for most cases. I suggest that you only touch them if you know what you're doing. In our workflow editor, we can zoom in or zoom out by pressing Command and the minus or the plus sign. There's these color-coded external triggers and different kind of hotkeys, and there's so many different ways that you can trigger Kiki, but we don't need to look at those right now. If you want to read more about it, you can go back to the documentation, and there's this area where we talk about custom triggers. It's very, very, very useful. But even without touching that area, you can already be controlling Kiki using keywords. The keywords that allow you to use Kiki's KO or Kiki options, KC for a chat, KT for text presets. Now our KO, which is the options, only shows two options right now because we haven't had any chat. So let's start a chat. Hi. Now let's go back to the options, and we have all of these that allow us to deal with the existing files or conversation or history. In any of these, you can press and hold Command, and it will reveal the directory that you chose for Kiki. You can also very quickly press Shift, and for example, you can see the last response. You can see the entire context file, so you can keep track of everything that you have been saying. Right now, I want to show you this note that I did as a guide for just an overview of Kiki. And there's two modes of use. One of them is input text with keywords. Like I already showed you how to have a chat, but for example, if you wanted to run a preset, you can enter your own text for such a preset. Or you can do it on selected text. For selected text, we're using Alfred universal actions. If you don't know what are these, you have to go into Alfred and go to Feature, Universal Actions. This is the shortcut that I'm pressing. So I can select some text, I can press my hotkey and look for Kiki. Now I can send it to the text presets and run any of these actions on the selected text. You have to know that the default for Kiki universal actions is paste in front most app. You can change the behavior by pressing modifiers like Shift. It will make it go back to the dialog. Pressing Control allow you to not reset the context, because the context is restarted every time you perform a preset or every time you start a new conversation, just so that the tokens don't keep growing and you'll be charged for them. Whenever you select text, you also can press and hold Fn, and you have the option of inserting below. You can use your alternative model by pressing and holding Command, and by using an option, actually you only have the option modifier, you only have it available whenever you have the input from the user. So let's choose this one. Now I press Option, and we have paste in front most app, which is the default for selected text. Okay, so there's the three actions: chat, custom prompt, presets menu, and three ways of receiving the response that I already showed you: dialog, paste in front most app, or paste below. Everything that has to do with external triggers or snippets or hotkeys has to do with a mix of all of these options. If you go into Alfred, for example, you can see that I already set up some snippets here, which allow me to start a conversation even within any text editor. It starts to get a little bit more complicated once you start to look into external triggers, because there's this one all-in-one trigger, and I mentioned it in the documentation. Let me look, the all-in-one trigger, and you can specify any combination of modifiers. So no longer you have to follow the default for selected text that is replacing. You can specify that you select text and you want it as a dialogue or something else. You have all of these customization options if you want to get into that. What I want to show you right now is how to do your own text presets. And for that, we have to go to our Kiki directory. The folder we want to look at is presets. Let's remove that last character to make it available to Kiki. Now we go inside, and the one file that we need to work on for now is text.json. You can edit in pretty much any text editor, but I prefer VS Code because it gives me these colors, and I always know if I break my file by inserting something that I shouldn't be inserting. In general, the JSON format is very forgiving when it comes to inserting characters, but you should just try to avoid inserting double quotes. If you do so, you have to escape them in this way. But for normal typing, you shouldn't have any problems. You have to know two things. First, that you are required to have an ID, title, and a prompt for each of your presets. And second is that this TXT within square brackets will be replaced by the user's input or the selected text that you send to your preset. So for example, let's add one more. We can copy all of these, add a comma, and say translate SP. Now translate to Spanish. Conversational Spanish. I save this file. Now I go to my text presets menu, and there it is. Translate to Spanish. Hi, how are you? Got it. It's working. Perfect. This is how you start making your presets. In the documentation, again, there's one area where it explains how you can start adding more settings to each preset. So you can actually set advanced parameters like your model, a temperature, a different system role, top P, frequency penalty. All of those settings you can set also per preset. Now there's another thing that I wanted to show you here, and that's how to resume previous chats. So let's say that I'm having a very cool chat with Kiki, hey, hello, or something, I don't know. And I closed it, and I thought, man, that was a very cool chat, I want to keep it for later. I can go to Kiki options and then copy my most recent context file. This one will go to the path that you specified in the configuration. Since I have an application called Dropover that is watching this folder where I'm copying my files, I can simply drag from here into my desktop or into a folder. Here we have the context file. I can also trigger Alfred's universal actions. I can look for Kiki, and now I have the option of resuming chat. That's it. Exactly where I left off. Now there's something that you must know. Let me quick look this one. Right now I only have the hello and the answer. You can actually go in the file and modify the answers if you want to train Kiki to give you a better response or something like that. But for now, I want to tell you that whenever you continue, this context file continues untouched by default. It will autosave to your folder. Here's what I just entered. If you want to continue this conversation in this context file and you want it to autosave, you have to press and hold Control. Here it says continuing dialogue and autosave context file. And when you press Control, and trigger the conversation. Now you can continue and just testing this. Close. And now your answers will autosave here. I think this is a great way to keep track of the conversations that you're having. You can save this on your hard drive in your own organization system, I don't know, and you can resume anytime later. Everything that I have talked about until now is still very, very basic. If you want to get into more advanced stuff and want to really start using Kiki in a way that can save you so much more time, you probably want to start looking into all of these external triggers, like I mentioned, that is explained in the documentation. Right now, what we want to look at really quickly is how to have our Markdown chats. So let's close this for a little bit. Let me close it and tell you something. My application for Markdown text editing is better, and I have a shortcut set up so that every time I want very quickly, I can start a note wherever I am, and it already has this format. This is what is necessary for the workflow to detect some templates that you will tell it. Like I mentioned, the beginning of this line by default will be let me see, this symbol. So by default, it will start like this. This is how Markdown is interpreted. Let me go to Visual Studio Code just to show you in a clip file. This is a note title. This is a Markdown note separator, and then this is our identifier. Then we want another line separator, and then we want hello. Let's go back to Alfred. For the Markdown chat, these are the violet color ones. Let me use it with a snippet right now. I will say KM. So I can type hello, and then I can put KM. Did you see how this user was introduced automatically? This means that Kiki just started the context file like without any previous messages. So again, let me show you. Here's a context file that I just created. Hello and hello, how can I assist you? I can continue the conversation here. I'm just testing. And send it again. KM. And you can see the context file gets updated. If I start a conversation on a dialogue, like I told you, the context file will be reset. Hello, how can I see you today? Let's open the context file. Totally empty. I just started this conversation here. And I come to my text editor. If I start here, everything from before will be erased. If I don't want to erase it, I can enter another line separator and just say, just testing this. Here is what I just typed, and as you saw, there's no user header that was inserted automatically. That means that my context continues. It's not difficult to grasp. It just requires you to pay a little bit of attention to what I'm saying here. But this is really, really, really useful if you want to have a different place to have your conversations and be able to have an experience similar to what you have on another application or on the ChatGPT official website. But in this case, you are having it in your own Text Editor. And since it's Markdown, actually, it looks so much better in this way. It just looks so much better. In my case, Better even allows me to attach files to my notes. So what I can do is go here, copy the last response. No, not copy the last response. Copy the file. Copy the most recent context file. What I can do is always make space here and bring this file here. I can close my note. I can have other conversations, and anytime I can come back here and trigger Alfred. And if I press Control, it will save to the context file. But since I'm inside my note, I have another option here. Option. Continue as Markdown chat. So I can answer here. Let me see what was my last answer. The last answer. Hello, I can't. Hang on a sec. Just instant. Kiki, resume chat. I press Option and I press Control. Continue as Markdown chat and autosave one request in context file. Let's do that. And we can open our context file, and here is exactly what I just typed. This is the Markdown chat feature, but it starts to get more complex and more useful at the same time when you understand that you can include templates in this part of your header. For example, I remember that in my configuration of the workflow, I said that I only wanted 10 messages in my context. So right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4. But if I start to get closer to the 10th message and I still think that I want to continue, what I can do is put C and then 0. This means I don't want it to have a limit in context. Something that you can also do is set the specific model for this conversation where we are right now. And how do we do that? Well, that's where all the other presets in our folder come into place. I have a preset, for example, for the GPT-4 Turbo Preview model, and that's M and like this. And I also can set systems. So I have one for coding, for example. A lot of what you see in Kiki actually came from using this model and this system preset. I actually know very little about coding, and I use Kiki a lot for developing the scripts that were necessary. This is just a very general overview. I could really go on and on. There are so many ways in which you can set up Kiki and use it, but everything is in the documentation. If you read that, you can also learn how to connect Kiki with third-party automation apps like BetterTouchtool, Keyboard Maestro, PopClip, and many others. If you have any question that I can help you with, you can let me know and I will do my best. As always, feel free to sign up for my newsletter for more frequent updates. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.